Hi everybody, it's Geordie from Geordie's Cards. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sharing this square-shaped card that I made for the Pawsome Stamps Instagram hop, which is going on at the moment. Well worth checking it out. There is the chance of winning a gift voucher for Pawsome Stamps. Highly recommend you go and check that on Instagram. You can find my Instagram page on the description box below. So I am using this beautiful Fall Wreath stamp set from Pawsome Stamps. I absolutely love it. I stamped it onto some Bristol smooth cardstock and I have coloured it with my Zig Clean Colour Real Brush markers today. I just love the way it's turned out, all those beautiful bright autumn colours. I then have a piece of Concord and 9th cardstock. This is, I'm trying to think of the name of it, Evergreen. I was going to say Noble Fir, but that's the Lawn Fawn version. It's Concord and 9th Evergreen cardstock. And I've just cut that so it measures, I think it's 4.5 inches square. And I'm just figuring out how I'm going to pop my sentiment there. So I've lined my sentiment up where it needs to go. I'm going to pop this down into my stamping positioner, and make sure that I have it lined up correctly again, get my sentiment where it needs to go. And then I'm going to remove that wreath and stamp the sentiment out with some Versamark Embossing ink, and I'm going to white heat emboss the sentiment in the center of my wreath here. So I'm just taking my time to really make sure that I've got it lined up correctly in the right spot, very carefully removing that wreath, holding it down with my magnets and then picking it up, and I will go ahead and stamp it out with my Versamark ink. I am using my powder tool there just to make sure that the embossing powder sticks just to the sentiment and not to the rest of the cardstock. I always find that I have quite good luck if I layer it quite heavily with powder there. And here is my white heat embossing ink. I'm going to spoon it on and tap off any excess. I'll do that a couple of times and then take it to my heat gun and heat this up. I like to heat the back of the cardstock first and then heat the front. I find that if I heat the back first, it helps the embossing powder stick in place and not blow around. So just take it to the back of the cardstock and then the front, and I end up with this lovely, nice, white, glossy sentiment. There is a bit of excess powder on there, so I'm just taking a dry paper towel and just buffing that off. And there we have it. My wreath fits nicely on top and you can still see the sentiment perfectly. So I decided that I would pop my wreath up with some foam tape today, just to add a little bit of extra dimension. This is going to be a fairly simple card. Other than the wreath, there's not a lot going on. So, but I think the wreath is enough because it's really pretty. It's, like I say, quite nice, vibrant fall colours, and I just love the way it's turned out. So just adding a little bit of foam tape to pop everything up. Once I've done that and I've removed all the backing paper, I will pop it in place, hopefully get it nice and centered, which is always the risky part. And because I did do some heat embossing, that dark green cardstock is slightly warped. So yeah, it does smooth out in the end, but you just have to be a little bit careful about where you're popping this wreath down on top. But I think I managed to do it pretty well. So I wanted to make sure that my pumpkin was kind of upright. I felt like that was the most important part, to get the right way around. Everything else is kind of just wherever it goes is fine. Once I had that securely fastened down, I decided to pull out my white Posca pen. Now, this is something that's a little bit new to me. I normally use a white gel pen, but I found that it's not always the most reliable tool. Sometimes it works great and then other times it doesn't. So I decided to pull out my white Posca pen here and add lots of dot detail all the way around the edge of both the inside and the outside of the wreath. I started out just by making little dots all the way around and trying to be careful not to put my fingers in it and smudge the paint before it's dried. But this is basically an acrylic paint pen, so it is acrylic paint. And I just really like it, and I find it's quite nice and vibrant and really bright white, as opposed to the gel pen, which can sometimes get a little bit lost and kind of sink into the cardstock a bit more. I hope that makes sense. I decided to go back in and make a few larger dots as well, just to add a little bit of extra interest. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think I'll be trying this a little bit more often, just to add some extra details. I think it turned out really, really lovely. And it kind of adds a little bit of a magical quality to the finished image. I really like the way that it looks. So that is my card panel all complete. Then I decided to pull out this kind of vanilla-y coloured card base. This is actually Lawn Fawn Eggshell, Speckled Eggshell, I think it's called, cardstock. So it has a bit of texture and detail to it, and it's off-white. It's not white, it's kind of a more creamy vanilla-y colour. And I just thought that worked really well for autumn. So I'm going to centre that front panel down on top of that. There's a nice border all the way around. My card base measures 5 inches by 5 inches, so there's a 1/4 inch border all the way around. Once I've got it in the right place, I'll give it a good smoosh down, and that is it, my card complete. I hope you enjoyed this one today. Do make sure you go and check out the Instagram hop that's going on for Pawsome Stamps at the moment. There's some amazing cards by the design team. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please do give this one a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to my channel. I'd love to see you come back and join me again. And please feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining me.